So we all know that Joe Biden lies, but now even the far left propaganda machine, the Washington Post, is recognizing it. We're going to cover that here today on Speechless, Cut for Time. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Speechless, Cut for Time. I'm your host, Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois, covering just all the news that I can't necessarily cover on my radio show. Maybe this will make it onto the next show, but I want to cover this. I think it's fascinating. But before we do that, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Everybody, I really want to know what you guys have to say about all these different stories we're going to cover here today on Speechless Cut for Time. Thank you so much for tuning in again. Don't forget to hit that like button, smash it, share the video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell. Make sure that you know that because ScrewTube tries to make sure that I can't get these messages out to everybody. So if you ring the notification bell, set to all, and make sure you're actually staying up to date with the content, everybody, then you'll be informed. But we're going to cover this story right here. So the Washington Post, let's just start here. So we know that Joe Biden lies, right? We have Devin Archer. We have all these things coming out through James Comer's special committee that's looking into all this. We know Joe Biden is a liar. And most of the people that watch the show consistently hear about all the times that I've been able to lay out how Joe Biden has lied to you, the American public, and me even. And it's awful. But now even the Washington Post sent out a fact checker. Yeah, the Washington Post, we all know, the far left liberal, they've done a hit piece on Cities 92.9 before. They're usually liars and propagators of propaganda. But they came out with an article just this last week that says Biden loves to retell certain stories. Some aren't credible. Now, of course, it's the Washington Post. They're not going to be disfavorable to the president. However, they are still recognizing that he's lying. And so let's go through a little bit of this article, and we're going to call it out like we see it. But I'm just fascinated with it. And so they start off, again, the Washington Post, President Biden, like many politicians, likes to tell stories that attempt to connect his life story with his audiences and make up an essential part of his persona. Speaking to survivors of the devastating Maui fire on August 20th, Biden recalled how lightning had once struck a pond outside his home, sparking a fire. He said, quote, "To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my Corvette, and my cat," adding, all kidding aside. But throughout his career, most famously in his first presidential campaign in the 1988 election cycle, Biden's propensity to exaggerate or embellish tales about his life led to doubts about his truthfulness. Contemporary news reports on the house fire do not match his telling of its fanning criticism that he had lied to a vulnerable audience. Joe Biden shared his life, or his version of it, continuously, wrote Richard Ben Kramer in his 1992 book, What It Takes, about the 1988 campaign. He confided it. He displayed it, spread it profligatedly, and even expanded it to connect it with your life. He would settle for nothing less. So here's what they're trying to do already, is they're trying to make it seem like, oh, no, he might be embellishing, but it's just so that he can connect to his audience. He can just connect to his audience. Interestingly enough, you don't know how often the lamestream media like the Washington Post would consistently call Donald Trump a liar, because Donald Trump famously embellishes things. And yeah, maybe it's not always great, but we all know the Donald Trump that'll go, oh, it's going to be the greatest. It's going to be the biggest, the hugest, all those things. He says those things, and he's never meant to be actually saying something is actually going to be the biggest. And you could tell by his tone, but we all know, but the mainstream media would never let him have it. They would never. He's a liar. He's lying to you. He's an awful president because he doesn't. But when Biden does it, oh, it's just him trying to connect to you. It's just him trying to connect to you. But then they go into 5 stories that Joe Biden likes to tell, some of which we have all heard before, and the actual possibility or level of truthfulness they could actually have. So the first one is the tale of the fire in his house, which obviously Biden drew immense criticism for trying to relate that to the devastating Maui wildfires, which a lot of questions are surrounding those, but that's a different video. But so the tale of the fire is at his house at least 6 times as president, most recently in comments to Hurricane Idalia victims Wednesday. Biden has exaggerated the extent of a fire that occurred at his house in 2004. He said, and I know, having had a house burned down with my wife in it, she got out safely. God willing, that having a significant portion of it burn, I can tell 10 minutes make a hell of a difference, Biden said at an infrastructure event in 2021. In March last year, speaking to at a firefighters conference, Biden said, lightning struck in a pond behind my house, went up underneath the conduit, and caught fire underneath the floorboards of my house. And it was during the summer. Air conditioning was on. Smoke was thick on all 3 stories, he added. My fire company was there to go in and save my wife, get her out, the cat, and my 67 Corvette. Speaking to a summit on fire prevention last October, Biden said, we almost lost a couple of firefighters, they tell me, because the kitchen floor was the burning between beams in the house, in addition to almost collapsed into the basement. The contemporary news accounts in the Wilmington News Journal and the Associated Press tell a much less dramatic story. This is what it says. Biden's house on Barley Mill Road was reportedly hit by lightning at 8:16 a.m. Emergency officials said. The News Journal reported there were no injuries. The firefighters kept the fire contained to one room. The article added that firefighters from Cranston Heights, Tallyville, Ellesmere, Mill Creek, and Hawkinson fire companies arrived to find heavy smoke coming from the house. Cranston Heights Fire Co. Chief George Lamburn told the newspaper the flames did not spread from the kitchen, unlike what Biden said, that it covered all 3 stories. Luckily, we got it pretty early, he said. The fire was under control in 20 minutes. At a Democratic National Committee fundraiser in 2021, Jill Biden offered her own account, saying, a while back, our house was struck by lightning and caught fire. I'll never forget standing in the rain, watching the firefighters try to put it out. I was devastated. I turned to Joe, who loved that house, and said, Joe, what are we going to do? And he looked back at me with a smile and said, look at it this way. Now we can fix all the things we didn't like. Wow. So much less dramatic. And even, again, the Washington Post is recognizing it. The Washington Post is recognizing that he fibs a bit. The next one is the tale of the Amtrak conductor. At least 10 times as president, most recently during an August 15th speech in Milwaukee, Biden has told a heartwarming but implausible story about an Amtrak conductor named Angelo Negri, who congratulated him for traveling more on Amtrak than he had on Air Force planes as vice president. Biden often brings up the anecdote when discussing infrastructure projects or speaking to labor groups. Now, so here's what they're trying to do in the Washington Post. They're trying to say, oh, well, here's the story and here's the issue he's trying to relate to. It's just cute. It's just embellishing to relate to the people. It's all about just relating to the people. That's all it's about. Back to the article, Biden's tale varies slightly in each retelling. In one version, told at a New Jersey transit facility in October 2021, Biden recalled, and walks up to me and goes, Joey, baby, grabs my cheek. And I thought the Secret Service was going to blow his head off. It's a little dramatic, Joe. Biden said that Negri had flown 1.2 miles as vice president, but Negri calculated he had actually traveled more than 2 million miles on Amtrak. So, Joey, I don't want to hear about this about Air Force anymore, Negri allegedly said. Often Biden adds his, he just says his true story. But it's not possible this conversation took place, as Biden describes. Negri and Biden were friends, according to the CNN interview, but with Negri's stepdaughter in 2021. And she said Negri adored Biden, but Biden did not pass the 1.2 million mile mark until 2016, after he was done as vice president. Negri retired from Amtrak in 93, 16 years before Biden became vice president. Negri died in 2014, 2 years before Biden claims they had this conversation. In 2009, after Biden became vice president, Esquire described a hey, Joey baby conversation with an unnamed conductor, suggesting Biden may be mixing up Negri with another person. So here's what the Washington Post says for this one. They're still saying he's like kind of lying, but they're also trying to say, no. He's just confused. He's mixing up that story with another one. He interacts with so many people. Just cute little old Grandpa Joe, just mixing up stories. Now there's another story. This one's, oh my God, this one gets me. This is the tale of gay men in suits kissing. 3 times a year and at least 7 times since 2014, Biden has told a version most recently on August 10th of a story about words his father supposedly spoke after a teenage Biden saw 2 well-dressed men in suits kiss each other in downtown Wilmington in the early 1960s. Joey, it's simple. They love each other, Biden's father is said to have remarked. Biden usually mentions this story when discussing gay issues, but there are reasons to be skeptical. Again, they're trying to say, oh, well, he's just trying to relate to people. It's just good old Grandpa Joe. Biden depicts a scene that would have been unusual 6 decades ago. You think? You think? Gay marriage was only legalized in what, like 2012 through the Supreme Court, the Obergefell case, however you pronounce it. And yet Biden wants to say 6 decades ago, his father, and Biden is 80 something years old, meaning his father is definitely a very much more traditional guy living in an America where being gay was very different. And that's what even the Washington Post said. He described this exchange with his father usually as taking place in 1961, but back then, gay men generally did not kiss in public. Many people regarded homosexuality as deviant, and Delaware's Rehoboth Beach had some bars regarded then as gay-friendly, but that's not the same as the straight-laced business community in downtown Wilmington. Moreover, Biden's story has evolved over time. In 2014, in a New York Times article on his evolution on same-sex marriage, he was the father in the story, speaking to one of his sons. So same story, except for it was Biden talking to one of his sons, saying the same story. In the article, Biden's father figures in a different story on a similar theme, forcing a friend to apologize after insulting a gay couple at a Delaware beach. But in 1987, Biden told the Los Angeles Times yet another version, that his father had lectured him after he tried to put off a visit to a gay couple who were strong supporters of the senator and shared an apartment at a Delaware beach. Once again, Biden lied. We can prove it. And even the Washington Post is willing to say it. Now, again, even they're trying to put it to a cute spin on it. It's just a cute thing. It's quirky. But he still lied. Now, the next one is the tale of his civil rights arrest. Now, this is really funny to me, this whole thing, because Joe Biden is the one that back in the 90s, when he was a senator, fought against civil rights acts, claiming that he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle. That's a quote from Joe Biden. He didn't want him to grow up in a racial jungle, yet he wants to act like a civil rights hero. You know, Democrats, back when the original civil rights acts were passed back in the 1960s, were the ones that tried to block the civil rights acts. Okay. But okay, Biden. Biden had a tangential role in the civil rights movement. The fact checker determined that he participated in one walkout at a restaurant and picketed a segregated movie theater. And yet sometimes he has suggested he was arrested for advocating on behalf of black people. 4 times, including once as president, Biden had suggested he was arrested for standing on the porch with a black couple who were subject to demonstrations. Sometimes he says that his mother warned him not to go to protests, saying, quote, "Remember when I told you not to go down there, honey, because everybody is protesting and you got arrested standing with family on the porch." He said his mother told him in a version he recounted in 2017. Twice, Biden said that police merely brought him back home from the protest after he stood on the porch. But when we investigated, the story did not add up. There was a protest of a black couple who had purchased a house in an all-white area, but it was a neighborhood many miles from the Biden home. Biden instead appears to be referring to a protest that took place outside of the home of the real estate agent who was involved in the sale. That was near where he lived as a teenager at the time. Campaigning for president in 2020, Biden 3 times claimed he was arrested in South Africa for trying to see Nelson Mandela, who at the time was imprisoned on Robben Island near Cape Town. When we determined that that was false, he amended his statement to say he was stopped at the airport while traveling with a congressional delegation, though others on the delegation said that did not happen. As president, Biden usually just comments that he tried to see Mandela while visiting South Africa. But once he said he almost was arrested, saying, quote, "Only time I almost got arrested was I was trying to go see Nelson Mandela in South Africa and when I was at a civil rights march," he said at a Democratic National Committee event in September 22. That was the only 2 times, but I didn't get arrested. They didn't think I was worth it. Why does he lie about all? Okay, so here's the thing: is the Washington Post tries to just claim that he's just trying to relate to people, and really, here's the thing: is it's not as cute as what the Washington Post. And there's another story to cover too, but it's not as cute as the Washington Post tries to claim. What it is it's pandering. That's what he tries to do. Biden is every politician tries to do this, and I've said this about even Republican politicians, Democrat politicians, all of them. They all try to do this thing where it's, oh, I'm a just like you candidate. I'm an activist. I'm boots on the ground. I almost got arrested. I'm just like you. I'm the front lines. I'm the grassroots candidate. That's what they try to push. Biden has been in politics for 4+ decades. He is not just like you. He has made his entire fortune off of being a politician. These stories are his way of trying to come off as just like you. The reason why they are lies, why they are embellishments, is because he knows that he's not just like you, but he has to sell it. And so that's what he tries to do. The next story, the tales of a heroic uncle and the family hospital. Besides his father, Biden's grandfather, uncle, and other family members appear as regular characters in his speeches. But some of the stories he tells are not plausible. Speaking to veterans last December, Biden recalled how his Uncle Frank fought in the Battle of the Bulge during World War II and was awarded the Purple Heart but never received it. He said that after he became vice president in 2009, he arranged to present the medal to his uncle with the rest of his family in attendance. But here's the kicker. His uncle, Frank H. Biden, died 10 years earlier than that, 1999. Neither his obituary nor tombstone mentions a Purple Heart awarded when a soldier is killed or wounded while serving. Interesting. Biden had another uncle, Ambrose, who is listed as missing in action during the war. Biden has described him as being shot down during a reconnaissance flight. Twice this year, most recently in a Milwaukee speech, Biden has claimed his grandfather, an oil company executive, died in the same hospital just before Biden himself was born there. In April, it was 2 weeks before, and in August, it was 6 days. But Biden's paternal grandfather, Joseph H. Biden, dies at Johns Hopkins Hospital in 1941, according to his obituary. Joe Biden, president, was born at St. Mary's Hospital in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1942, 14 months after. His maternal grandfather, Ambrose, did die at St. Mary's, but in 1957, nearly 15 years after Joe Biden was born. None of it's plausible. None of it's plausible. And some people could try to make the argument that, oh, he's just cute Uncle Joe. He's misremembering things. He's an old guy, Grandpa Joe, whatever. No, what it is it's classic politician pandering. And yes, here's the thing, is I want to give the Washington Post credit for at least running a fact check about it, because they always want to be the fact checkers for when Trump said something was the greatest or the biggest or the hugest. They always wanted to be that, but they never usually try to fact check the president. And fortunately, his approval ratings must just be low enough where even lamestream media, far left propagandists will finally actually recognize it. But I just think it's fascinating, and I think it was good to succinctly show you 5 different instances of stories that Joe Biden says, changes, lies about, and nobody ever actually tries to say, hey, Joe Biden actually does this. He's pandering to you. That's what he's doing. It's not cute. It's not embellishment. It's not him actually relating to you. No, he's pandering. It's just like there's a scene in the movie The Campaign with Will Ferrell where he goes around to all these different people and says, you are the backbone of the American economy. And it's like farmers, it's veterans, it's tilt-a-whirl workers, it's all of them. That's what Joe Biden is doing right here, saying, I'm just like you. No, you're not, Joe. No one else has a son that is able to profit millions to billions of dollars from other countries. I think it's millions. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Don't know off the top of my head. But millions of dollars off of at least 5 other countries because their dad would give them phone calls to exert the power that he has. Just saying. No one else can do that. Along with a lot of other things. But you've been in politics for 40 years. Everybody, that's that story. Let me know what you think in the comments about all of those stories. What else has Joe Biden lied about? Let me know. I'd love to know, because I try to cover a lot of it, and I might be missing something. What else has Joe Biden lied about? Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Ring it to all. Comment, share, all that stuff. If you want to support the channel, send a super chat, super thanks, whatever. Or check out the Venmo and the Cash App down there. I'd really appreciate it if you want to support in any way. God bless you guys. God bless America. We'll be back again at some point soon here with more Speechless Cut for Time.